Welcome to Watch This, bitches. This is part 2 of the Jeff Varner interview.
Well, a question I want to ask on not getting into, the controversy of everything that happened.
Like you can get into it. I'm not afraid of it.
I have a slightly better note question to ask first.
Okay.
You said, when you get voted out, they paint you into this villain. You did one bad thing. They find the scenes to build up to that. So I did see moments in watching where you and Zeke, you had a very deep bond. I just want to know what that relationship was really like, because I feel like the show, now that you're saying that, they put all these scenes together to make this character, I feel like we didn't get to see the extent of your relationship and how close you two really were.
I didn't watch all the episodes. Because I had to kind of pick and choose what I could watch. But even watching that last episode, I was like, something's not tracking.
Okay.
Something didn't track, because it went from this wonderful, and then all of a sudden it was like there was like this. I didn't understand that this flip or something. I just didn't quite get it, and I thought, okay, I've missed something, because
you didn't miss anything. It was things were cut out, and damning things, I think, that show intent. But when we got out there, Zeke and I weren't on the same tribe, so it wasn't really a thing. But I knew he was trans. I could tell. I saw the scars at the Ponderosa before we went out. I would test just a little bit with the producers. I would, because you're not supposed to talk to each other, but I knew that they liked that aggressive sort of thing. So I was trying to give them a little of that, like I did with Australia, like I did with Cambodia. I was doing what I thought they brought me there to do. And I would throw out a little nugget privately with them. I was like, he's trans, isn't he? Like, I would let them know that I knew, just to see their reaction. Because when we got out there to go for that was an all-star season. And we show up at the hotel to get on the plane to fly to Fiji. And there are two people I've never seen before, because Survivor shoots 2 seasons back to back. They'll shoot season 33 in April to March, and then they'll shot 34 in May to July. So 33 happened, and something happened there that had them say, okay, Michaela and Zeke, you are the two, we're going to bring you right back. So I was immediately fascinated with them. And I'm a body language person. So I'm getting ready to play a game. I'm sitting here in this this hotel lobby with these legends. There's Sandra, there's Sari, there's Ozzy. Oh my God, who are these people? And what did they do to get here? Is he the winner? Is she the winner? I immediately was focused on them. I knew everybody else. I knew how I was going to go. I had some alliances already set up like we do. And I just was fascinated. So I would throw out little questions and ask little questions. And when the show started, he wasn't there. So Zeke wasn't really part of the process for me. The first tribe swap we did into the game, we again didn't end up on the same place. So he really wasn't a factor. It wasn't like we had a relationship. But then that last swap, it was me and Sandra against all of them. And he was there and Ty was there. And every time I would try to take someone into the jungle to talk to them, Zeke would show up. And when they show up, the people you're talking to will react in one of 2 ways. They'll either be and change the subject because that person doesn't need to know what we're talking about, or they'll act like nothing happened and keep talking, which means they're aligned with that person too, right? So every private conversation I would have, Zeke would pop up and that person would have that we're buddies thing. Wouldn't change the subject. I knew Zeke was aligned with everybody, and I was watching him like a hawk. Russell Hantz did the same thing. He did season 19, then came out and immediately went back to season 20, and he started Heroes versus Villains, and they didn't know who he was. And he was the devil, he was awful, and he was in control of everything, and he played it off a completely different way. In my mind, that's who Zeke was. You did something to get here with these big dogs. I want to know who you are. And we got to know each other. We talked. He talked about how his thesis at Harvard in college was about how Jesus Christ is transgender. It was about a transgender concept within religion. And I knew, and he wasn't bringing it up, but when he would say stuff like that, I would think to myself, okay, so you're out, and then it's like, you just played a season that hasn't aired yet. So you're already out to the world. You're just not out here. And because I thought he was the devil, Russell Hantz, I just never trusted him. I didn't trust it. I played him and we talked, but I never really trusted him. I thought he was playing me. And that day we had that talk on the beach, we never talked about it. I expected him to bring it up. It wasn't my thing to bring up. I figured if you're going to bring it up, you're going to bring it up. And he didn't. And we talked about game and family, and it was a great conversation. We got along really well, but he let me know some secrets. And it was me. I was going home. I needed to find a crack in that alliance in some way if I was going to stay at all. And my whole focus was find the crack, find the crack. So when Zeke said, Sarah and Andrea are going to lie to your face and all this stuff. And then I saw that as the crack. So I went and used that. And that was the last conversation I had with Zeke. He came up to me and said, I can't save you. Sorry. They're all going to vote you out, but they're going to lie to you. So I used what he said to start this whole fire and got those girls against him and did the thing I do in Survivor, trying to stay alive. I tore that whole place up looking for an idol. Tell me if I'm going on too far, because I'm walking you through the whole process.
Yeah.
I tore that whole island up looking for an idol. I found out later I wasn't too far from it. I should have kept going up a hill, but when I'm going up the hill, I see Ozzy hiding behind a tree, staring at me, and then he would duck back behind the tree. So I knew he was following me. So I thought,
no, we didn't see.
No, you didn't see any of this. So I turned around. I should have walked right on up the hill. I'd have found that idol, but I turned around and walked down, and I was like, Ozzy, stop hiding behind a tree. You look like a fucking idiot. Just come talk to me. If I find the idol, you'll see that I have found it. And if I haven't found it, you'll know that I didn't find it. So just come on. And I got his guard down, and I got him talking about his game. He told me who he was aligned with and that he was aligned with Zeke and Andrea. And instantly I knew I found my crack, because that means Ty and Debbie and Sarah are not in that alliance. So the producers heard that. Okay, so they heard that. I'm getting ready to tell you some secrets. And as soon as that hit kind of out there, I can't remember exactly how it happened, but the assistant producer guy said, it's time for your interview. And it was all, the sun was setting. I'm going to tribal. I just found my crack. I know what to do. I need to get back to those 3 people. And they pull me into the jungle for an interview, my final interview before tribal. As I'm walking through the path, I see the set in the far distance, the lights set up and everything's ready, and the producer's walking toward me. And I knew instantly, this isn't right. This isn't good. We're not supposed to be alone without microphones, witnesses, people. This is against the rules. I knew it. She came up to me, and I've got it written down somewhere. I can't tell you exactly how that conversation went, but she said, I know you're going to play the Aussie card, and I think it's a very good one, but Jeff and Mark would like to know how you're going to play the trans card. Never even came up in my mind, not even a comment I made, not any of that. And I'm like, what? And I stood there with her for 5 to 10 minutes, and she's tap dancing through my head. And I'm trying to put the things together to go do what I got to do. But now I got to go do this. And why are you doing this to me? I hadn't slept in 3 weeks. I haven't eaten anything. I'm stressed. I'm paranoid. I'm under pressure. Why are you messing with me like this? I remember thinking. And when I went and sat down for that interview, she just kept asking about it. And I'm thinking, I need to get over here and talk to Sarah and these guys. This isn't it. I can't remember the whole process, but I got so emotional. And I looked at her and I was like, now that you're done, will you give me 30 minutes to go over here and talk to these people? And she did. So I went and I pulled Sarah and Debbie and Ty into the woods. And I said, I've come up with some new information. And if I can tell you tonight at Tribal how you're not part of something here, you're being deceived. Will you vote with me? And they all agreed to. So I had that primed. I went into tribal council. I knew what I was going to do, how I was going to do it, had it. And if you'll go back and watch it, you'll see that's how I started. Jeff said, Jeff, he could see it in my body language. I knew what to do. Go ahead and start. And in that process, I was explaining to them how Zeke is aligned with this one, and he's not aligned with the 3 of you. You're out of it. We can vote them out. Zeke pops up and says, I'm not deceiving anybody. And out of my mouth came, then why don't you tell people you're transgender? Because in my head, I thought everybody knew except the people sitting right there. I thought he was out, loud, proud. He's talking about his thesis in front of people. He just left a season and came on to this new season. So the people watching at home knew he was. He's already come out. Like, in my mind, that's who he was. And it never dawned on me that he was in the closet. Not once. So when that realization hit, it was awful. It was the worst experience of my life. I sat there when it hit me, what's going to happen, what happened. And now I'm going to be on TV as being that guy who did that. And it was just horrific. I can't even begin to explain how that all went down, but I just remember feeling hands on me. In the beginning, I felt fingers. There's a visual image that I have burned into my head of Andrea and Ty and everybody turned around at me with fingers. How dare you? And I was in this shame circle that felt like I was there for a month. And it was awful. And I don't remember a lot more. I think I broke down. It was bad. But all of a sudden I felt hands on me. And I heard Jeff Probst say, Varner, I've known you 20 years. You don't have a hateful bone in your body. I heard Zeke say, Varner is stronger than me. He did what I needed to do. And I thank him for it. I heard all kinds of stuff along those lines. And when it was over, I just got up and left. And the therapist said, this is going to be perfectly fine. It's going to be ugly for a couple of minutes, but you guys came to this beautiful, compassionate place. And what a great story. This is going to be great conversation. And she really had that image in her mind. And I did too. And I carried it forever. And when I got back, Zeke and I finally spoke on the phone. And he told me that they were trying as hard as they could to get him to come out in season 33. And he refused to do it. He said he actually told them one time, if you keep pushing me, I'm going to walk off this set. And they left him alone. So that's the second reason I believe I was on Game Changers, was because his story was coming out one way or another. That's what they wanted in the seasons. That was the topic of the day. Remember, bathroom bills and all that stuff that was going on. That's what was in. And Jeff was so honed in on winning another Emmy. I read in a New York Times magazine where he admitted, New York Times, the paper, where he admitted in an interview that his deepest fear was that Hollywood would not find him credible, not a credible storyteller. And I had worshiped Jeff Probst up to that moment. And it just broke my heart, because it's like, okay, he's trying to win an Emmy. He's creating this so he could be relevant in that day. And when the show aired, it was not that. All of those supportive, affirming things I heard were cut out. And why? What's wrong with leaving in the show, Varner, I've known you 20 years. You don't have a hateful bone in your body. What would it have hurt to leave that 10-second bite in there? Why did they take it out? I have battled in my head for years with the question, how did that happen? And then I found out and read in their press releases that GLAAD was called in. Apparently Probst did that on his own. The network was not happy with him when he got back, because they had to fix a mess they had, and they brought GLAAD in to help. And GLAAD took 100% control of the edit of that episode, which changed everything for me. Because why would that organization trash a gay guy to elevate the trans guy? Like, you represent both of us. You should be concerned of how we're both treated in this edit and on this TV show, but you just threw me away. If they're in charge of that edit, they did those things. They were trying to make me look a certain way. And to know that GLAAD is an organization that changes the narrative to change society, which is on their website in some way, why is this the narrative that had to happen that night? That's a question that I'm writing a book about. I have journeyed through so many different places in my head and my mind, way up here, the lowest of the low, trying to figure out how that happened and why. And it led me into a research project that's changed who I am as a human. And I'm just rambling on. I'm so sorry. I just told you a whole bunch of stuff in a little bit of pop, and it was a lot. But my experience with that show, oh my, is wonderful. It's a wonderful thing. It changed my life. It was fantastic. But what they did to me there at the end was exploitative. It was awful. And it has affected everything about me. I've been canceled twice. I have just been taught to forgive people. It doesn't matter. Shame. We all have shame. And when people are yelling at you and calling you names and trying to hurt you, it's just them working out their shame. I didn't do anything to them. They just are triggered by something I did. And that shame is being targeted at me because I'm the one who brought it to them and made them feel that. And it's just helped me forgive people for years. I still to this day get hate. It's awful, the stuff that comes my way. They'll take screenshots, send it to my employer, and I am my employer. So I get those. And it's like, who are you and why are you doing this to me? And Eliza Orleans is another, you know who she is, I'm sure. CG, she's on Survivor. She ran for New York City district attorney, Manhattan district attorney or whatever. She went online and said, we need to shut Jeff Varner up. We need to deplatform these people. And she put this whole call to action out there, I felt like. And my phone lights up and I get all this hateful mail and my boss calls me and I got threatened with being canceled again. I just walked away and started my own company. It's like, I'm not dealing with you people anymore. And I've been doing pretty well, but the writing helps me a lot. I'm really diving into my life and who I am as a human and how I got where I am and why I make the choices I make and what I went through and how this experience after helped me heal a lot of it. I'm in a really good place right now, but it took me a lot of work to get here. And I can hate Survivor 1 minute. I haven't watched it since April 12th, 2017. I have very strong opinions about GLAAD and other organizations and what they're doing today and how that's all happening. And I'm just working through it as best I can and just trying to be grateful for the people who want to hear from me and talk to me. And I'm so happy that you guys had me here today to talk about this stuff. Even though this may not be what you wanted to talk about, it's where we headed. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity. I am.
Well, first of all, you're brave. You're courageous, you're brave, and thank you for telling, and you have every right to be an imperfect human being, as we all are. It's progress, it's not perfection. We're all trying to find our way in this world. And once, like we said before, mistakes are to be celebrated if something good comes from it, if we learn from these things. And as somebody who literally just watched this episode for the first time, not even the whole season, yes, it was shocking. But my mind, because I'm still looking at this like from the production point of view and all that. Yes. I kept saying to myself, what did I miss? What did I miss? Because it did feel aggressive, and it did feel, but I thought, of course you're going to the end. You said, I'm going to do anything I can to fight my way into this. But what was interesting, of course, there were intense reactions of, you can't do that. I mean, I do agree with, outing, yes. But then afterwards, Zeke had a wonderful interview explaining yes, it's not the way I wanted to do this, but it's only because I don't talk about it because I know that people tend to put that as the most important thing about me, and I just want to be myself.
Yes.
Now, if anybody out there hears, he says this wonderful story, like he was very calm, cool, collected, and okay. And the reaction, it was more the reactions of everyone else that seemed to be, like you said, evoked something painful in them, because I constantly say, he who has not sinned, throw that stone.
Yes.
Because that was one of my questions was, you've been subjected to negative media, and how are you handling that? And you answered all of that, because every situation needs to be handled with compassion. That's the only way I know how to do that.
Yes.
Every human being, to seek to understand and seek to be understood.
Yeah.
It's not black and white. It is not one side on the other. But I do think you bring up a really important thing that's coming to light. Bethany Frankel is talking about the exploitation of reality shows.
Yes.
And so I think you bring up a very, very good point, and you have every right to defend, and especially if, like you just said, you're not continuing behavior that is hurting people, or you've made a mistake, and I'm not discounting the impact of something so important that was said, and that words can have such an impact. And then you have and organizations coming in, and like, I'm not an expert on that. I have no opinion on that, but I think it's so important that you're now saying, I'm finding the positive. I've got my feet on the ground. I know who I am, and I've learned from this. And yes, it's important to have the ability to find the positive in the worst situations.
Absolutely. And I'm not perfect at that. I'm good at that. I've done that my whole life, but I'm not perfect. And, after 6 years or so of taking, like, literally every day, I will get something from somebody saying something awful. I just woke up one day and said, it's enough. Y'all have beaten me to death enough. It's been 6 years. And I started fighting back. And that opened up a whole nother can of worms, and all this ugliness is going on. But I'm not backing off of it, because I am not who y'all think I am. And I'm not going to forgive you for this anymore. This is a different place. You sent me away to learn something. I had a trans woman come to me online one day and say, you need to get that fuck offline and go read a book, learn something. So I did. I'm out in public and people are like, I hate what they did to you. And then they'd ask questions. Well, what is this trans stuff? And I didn't know. I'm a gay man. I've always been supportive and, of all of it. I've been part of the movement my whole life, and I don't have a negative, hateful bone in my body. But I couldn't ignore that. They were still asking. So I researched and studied and memorized all the little buzzwords and made sure I said the right things. And then in my research, I would find things that didn't make sense. And then this didn't make sense. And why are they saying that while this study is telling me this? And it's really brought me to a place where I'm seeing life differently, like how I approach everything. And it's just I can't even begin to explain this whole journey. I'm struggling. Writing a book's the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. And I've been writing it for 6 years now. And I have to relive things and pull stuff out of my childhood. And this is going to hurt my mom's feelings if I write this. So let's not write this, but it needs to be written. So let's write it anyway. And then I get in a fight with my mom on the phone because I'm answering the phone, feeling what I felt then. And it's not fair now. And there's so much happening in the world, and so much that I won't tolerate anymore. It's given me new boundaries, and it's helped me rearrange my peer group. And people I respected and loved with the show don't talk to me anymore, some of them. And it's fine, because you can't go where I'm going. So it's changed everything for me.
I do want to say that from someone who watched the show and then hearing you speak about it now, like my mom said, it makes much more sense. And it makes me upset that, the people who demonize you for all of this, they claim you're hateful, but then they just meet you with more hate.
Yeah.
And that doesn't benefit you. It doesn't benefit them. It doesn't benefit, bringing awareness to trans rights and everything. And it's disappointing that that is the way it had to be. But I also want to say that as a girl in her early 20s and learning how to take accountability for mistakes and learning from them and growing, like, hearing you speak this way about something that has affected your life so much and changed who you are, it's inspirational to me, because so many people will just take their mistakes and make excuses and not actually face them head on and not deal with the grief and the pain and everything that's going on inside.
Hey, baby, you hear daddy crying? Come here. Come meet some friends. He just pulled the microphone out. Stay with me. Stay with me. Stay with me. Stay with me. It's my dog, Gopher.
Oh, hi, baby. Oh, it kind of looks like Lucy, Mom.
Yeah.
He felt me. He feels me. You know,
emotional support animal.
He's my baby. He's been with me through the whole ride. This is what went to bed with me every night when I was wanting to kill myself.
Oh,
I'm so grateful.
You love animals
Yes.
for support.
Absolutely. Anyway, I didn't mean to have him derail you.
No, thank you.
I appreciate that so much.
Being so honest about it, because it's
There's
harder
so much more
to do the hard thing and admit to things than to just live with it and keep going the way it is.
Yeah.
Learning from your mistakes is the harder thing to do. People think it's harder to deal with the hate. It's so much harder to face it head on. And
you know what? It's a lesson I've learned. There are so many people out there that do things that they can't take accountability for. And the tips and tricks and things they do to hide it and prevent it and protect themselves are visible to me now because I've worked through all of this. I see this now. I see it in my family. I see it in my coworkers. I see it in other people. It's changed how I relate to people. Like, it's changed everything. Ridding yourself of shame and really walking in courage as best you can, even when what you're trying to say is not popular, is not it's not for sissies. That's for sure.
I would just offer that people, humans, individuals walk through the world with a lot of blame, like let's blame Hollywood. Let's blame this person. Let's blame. Yes. But oftentimes the solution to every problem is within ourselves.
Absolutely.
Because if a situation evokes so much anger, as opposed to seeking to understand and reacting with some kind of compassion, like maybe I can understand like something on a deeper level, but just all I have is anger. I need to look at myself, because why only anger and resentment only hurts me. And then if you address it or place it on somebody else, it doesn't, there's no benefit from that, as opposed
you feel better in that moment,
right?
That shedding of
like,
shame.
I'm right, you're wrong. You have no right. And it's there's things that are outrageous in the world right now. There's terrible atrocities going on.
Yes.
But it is my job in this world to not make assumptions. I love the 4 agreements, try to be impeccable with my word. And that's not even, obviously not just coming out of our mouths, how we talk to ourselves, how we treat others, not making assumptions, always doing our best. And, it's not, life is hard, whether it's even the most successful people, their successful lives are hard. And, we, no matter what, we have to pick our hard, it's there's no right answer. But I know that most people are either acting in love or fear. And under that
100%.
love umbrella is compassion and grace and kindness and patience and peace. And under fear is hate, suspicion, anger, envy, all of those things. So if you're, I've taught myself, what is my intention here? And, you could even say that even playing that game at the very end and Game Changers at the very end, it may, like, that may not have, that may have been under the fear umbrella of getting cast off.
100%.
Under the intention.
And also the fear of being seen, like you're on camera. So how I'm acting here is going to be seen by my little niece, my little nephew. And how am I going to explain this to them? And then you come back from it and you've got 10 months before it airs. You got 10 months to do some work and clean up. And it's just an impossible thing, because you feel like one thing's going to air and then something else airs. And all of a sudden it's just a whole nother animal, and it won't die and it won't go away. And it becomes, you have to adjust and adapt and accept is the big thing.
And I can only imagine, look, we started a podcast, and one of the things that was difficult for me was I loved hiding behind a script and being a character.
Yeah.
But then you get on a podcast and you become yourself. And we had some bad comments, but it kind of taught, nothing, I'm sure what you went through, but people saying all kinds of things. And I'm just glad I'm in a place where I just let it roll off like a duck. But if you have so many consequences, like employing, if you're let go from work or you've been officially canceled, like it's been a cancel culture for a long time. And I do believe it's one thing, and people going back to what people have tweeted years ago, because we are in a different time than 20 years ago.
Yes, we are.
What's acceptable, what's not acceptable. We've made some great strides. Pendulums are swinging in very distinct areas.
Yes.
And there's a lot of good that's come from it. But again, I will maintain that mistakes as long as we're saying, wait a second, I acknowledge, I take responsibility, I'm making amends, which means amends means to make whole, not just to say you're sorry and to change behavior. That's the best thing we can hope for. And if you have a problem with that, then you have your own problems.
Yeah. Everybody coming at you like that is they have their own problems. That's why it has nothing to do with what you did. You didn't do anything wrong. We all have different opinions. We all have different ways we do things. And that's what the beauty of this country is that we can be that and respect. Our First Amendment calls on us to respect another's religion, another's point of view, another's speech. And we seem to have lost that. And it's so when you're being canceled and everybody's coming at you and you click to see their profiles to see who they are, you begin to see a story start to happen. And it's a certain type of person. And then you meet people in person, they are sort of like that. And you make judgments about them because of who these over here did. And it just affects everything. Yeah. It's hard to explain. I'm getting a little heady here, but
well, and I do want to go back to that moment because I did see this instant, like I think it was impulsive. And
yes,
is that it? And
that's a great way to put it. Yeah.
ADHD, you said like,
yes. And I don't think it would have come out of my mouth had that a producer left me alone because I had another plan.
You got another thing going on.
Yeah. And she planted a seed. They let her go. I think she's no longer with the show. I'm not sure what happened there, but
well, it was an impulsive thing that was shocking and everybody had a reaction. And then this look on Zeke's face was like he was lost, but then also you had absolute remorse that I could feel.
Yes,
immediately.
I did.
And the other, I don't remember his name. The other gentleman who said he's an openly gay,
Ty.
He was saying, and he's like, I have compassion for him. I don't agree with what he did, but I have compassion, and that would to me was like, so they showed a little bit of that. So I thought that's
a little bit of it.
Instantly thought that's, and even like I said, it felt good to hear Zeke say, it's fine. I'm fine. It's okay. And it is a kind of a comment on society that they love to take something that could have been a difficult, questionable thing that had some wonderful results possibly and turn it into something that really made you question and put you in a difficult place. And shame is also one of those things that I think is really an individual thing that we create ourselves and is I think we've all
and people pour into you as well. Like it's and if it's happening to you when you're young, it's worse. Shame has nowhere to go but out. So as long as you are being shamed or feel shame or being made to feel shame, it's a beast inside you that grows and it just eventually gets big enough that you explode in some way. I've done a lot of studying into shame through this situation. I've learned a great deal, a lot about PTSD. I've been diagnosed with PTSD.
From this situation.
Yes, I've had reactions and I still to this day have them and I have to really work at it. There's a therapist and a team that I still work with today that helps me. But it's people don't know what that did to me. And when I see someone cancel someone else, even if they deserve to be whiplashed in front of the world, my heart goes to them. And I always side now with the person who's being beat up on. And I didn't do that before. I might have helped. I might have joined in. And I'm so grateful for that change. And there's a lot that's happened. There's a whole lot that we could talk about that I didn't go into that would give you perspective on some other things.
So when you left the show at that time, obviously they, because like I said, it was like, all of a sudden Jeff was like, okay. And I felt like this was, he said, he put his opinion on, he didn't say, he said,
he was like, do we even need to vote?
Yeah.
We don't need to vote.
It's funny. I had a Columbia University, New York City grad doing a PhD thesis or whatever they call those things where they had to get up and present, I'm not academic, so I'm not exactly sure what they had to do, but he called me to interview me because this episode was part of his thesis or whatever. What's that called? Is it a thesis?
A dissertation?
Dissertation. Thank you. I knew it started with a D. And he put forth something I never thought about. And I really found it fascinating that he's like, the fact that Jeff didn't let you all vote shows his intention. He had no intention to cut around that moment. His intention was to get that moment. And that's how he got it over with and out of the way quickly. I could have had an idol in my pocket. He didn't ask me if we should have voted. In Survivor Cambodia, there was an ugly scene between Cass and Tasha. These might not mean anything to you, but Tasha,
I know the names.
Tasha accused Cass of being racist. Cass used the word lynched, and Tasha had a fit and turned it into a thing. Cass didn't mean it in any. She was talking about something else. She just used the word, and it was an ugly thing that exploded at Tribal Council. And Cass said, if they put that on TV, I'm going to sue them. She told me that when she came back to it. And then when it aired, it wasn't on the air at all. He cut around it. So part of me was thinking they may cut around it, in that moment when I'm sitting there and that's all happening. I'm thinking to myself, maybe this is a Tasha Cass moment. This won't be on TV. It was one of the ways I kind of rationalized it all with myself in that moment. But he didn't even let us vote. So it showed he had no intention of cutting around it. He wanted to show it. But that whole journey after that night, when I left there, the final words, they have to shoot your final words. And I had to sit down. I remember walking away from the set, and you walk down this thing to this tent. And for the jury, that's where the scale is and the doctor, and they weigh you. And I was walking down that way. And it was the first time I'd been alone in weeks. And I'm walking down this pathway thinking, what did I just do? What? I couldn't even think through. It's like, what just happened? And I got into that tent and nobody was there. So I sat down in that chair and I was by myself. I didn't know where to go, who was coming. I was completely alone. I ripped my microphone off, and then they came to get me for my final interview. And I'm like, oh, put the microphone back on. And I sat down, and that producer that met me in the woods showed up behind the camera, and there were 20 people back there. And in those final interviews, when you're leaving, it's just 2 or 3 people. There were 20 people wanting to see what I was going to have to say. And when her first question to me was, so tell me how you feel. And I'll never forget it. I let her know how I felt. And I let her know that it was her involvement that had me feeling that way. And
they didn't show that.
Oh, no, not at all. But it took me such a long period of time to really get my arms around what actually happened there. It wasn't something that I could handle in that moment. You fight, you flee, or you freeze. And I was forced to freeze. I couldn't do anything about it. The narrative was created by GLAAD. The people had their view of what I was based off of that, and I couldn't stop it. I was fired. I couldn't stop it. And I can't explain to you how that felt to be in that situation. And to not see an end to it anytime soon. It just went on for years and years and years. It wasn't until I started fighting back that it eased off. And I really think that I have figured out how to silence the lambs, is to take them on. It's like, okay, you think that? Tell me why you think that. And I'll engage with people. If people come at me and they say something awful, I don't see them as somebody willing to learn or grow or hear my story. That's somebody trying to cause trouble for me. And they have a different reaction from me. And these tweets and posts and stuff fighting back are there. So if you read it out of context, it may look like I'm an awful person, but I'm not. I'm fighting an awful person in a way that an awful person's hearing me, and they're leaving me alone. And it's just my life is so interesting. There's a lot going on, and
and
crazy.
It's like, and
I need to go back to Cambodia and sit in a temple for a while.
Go back to, I think it must be, at some point you're like, am I in the victim mode of what happened to me, or do I fight back? And also, is the fighting back going to be beneficial for my spirit?
Right.
Because there's we require our bodies and spirits really require and desire homeostasis.
Yes.
We don't want to be going up and down like this, and PTSD and all of these things, it's such a big thing wrapped in. It's not like you just decided one day to go on Twitter and say some awful things about somebody.
Right.
You just asked a question
right.
that in society is we've been taught not to, and to use that as an example, this is what not to do in society. We're not supposed to out people. And but for
which of course I know I would never do that. And so here I am, the poster child for outing somebody. And it's not something I was even truthfully doing that night. Truth be told, Zeke's been out for years. This is another little wrinkle that I didn't throw out there. He was out. He's been out for years.
But he'd never done it on the show, apparently.
Not on the show, but in the press. There are articles that were written, an article that's written where he's out. And he even says the words, I'm loud, I'm proud, and I don't care who knows it. That's in the press. When you say something privately to a friend or a coworker, that's one thing. When you say it in the press, it's another. And he was confronted with that by somebody, and all of a sudden the article disappears. But I had already saved it and printed it, and the Wayback Machine has it. And there was an intention shown there. That shows intention to me. Why did you delete it? Why is it gone? And who got rid of it? So in hindsight, I didn't out him. And he was running. You were talking about how gracious and nice he was, and talked about the wonderful experience. Of course, he's running up and down red carpets. They're giving him the prime treatment. He's playing this role of this victim, and that was an awful thing. But at the end of the day, he was already out, and now he's playing a different game. And I have a different opinion of him today. That's a whole nother road we can travel down. But
wow.
I just try to keep myself as healthy and as positive as I possibly can while silencing the lambs and not hating that show, keeping it in a good place so I can speak to people like you about what a wonderful experience it was for 2 seasons and what I learned and grew from, and how those 2 helped me be strong enough to get through what the 3rd one did. I will always praise that show. Jeff Probst is a different situation. And I know, CG, that you watched the show at his house. I saw that episode. So I thought, oh no, she's probably a Probst fan, and I might say the wrong thing.
He doesn't.
I'm not offended. Not at all.
Good, I'm glad.
If you say something about Ian Somerhalder, on the other hand, then I might be offended.
I might fight that with you too, darling. We'll go at them together on that.
I think it is a learning experience, and you can learn from it, like Survivor, whoever. Like, it is something to be learned from for everyone. So I'm just glad you were able to share it here.
I've kind of come to this conclusion in life that, everything in the world truly is neutral. It just is, until human beings put a positive or negative judgment on it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be, not everything is, like I said, just not everything's good. Not everything's
right.
It's comedy and tragedy. I think this show is this amazing human experiment. And as it's grown and changed and such, I've always known that this is all of Hollywood and entertainment is a manipulative art form.
Yes, ma'am.
And it is designed to tell you how to feel in any given moment. So from the very beginning, there's music to present that it's comedy. There's music to present you to that it's dramatic. It's edited in a certain way. It's you're doing the job that you were hired to do.
Yes. There are publicists with connection to press that puts out the specific message and narrative, and
absolutely
the press puts it out there, being in news as well. And watching this is another excellent journey, was the negative press from somebody who's been in the press for 15 years. I know how all that works. So if that's what you said, that came from who and how, and seeing someone write about me, I know what part of that is a lie and is not true. But people out there don't. To them, it's true. And so it doesn't matter what's real with me. I now have to live up to this narrative and prove it wrong, or, and it's so not fair. It's just an awful thing that happened.
Yeah.
And I praise Bethany Frankel for what she's doing, because these situations are quite prevalent. They're everywhere. And they happen all the time. And these networks, they get such a hold on you that you're scared to talk about it. I would have been scared to talk about this, but every bridge I walked to get here is gone. So it really doesn't hurt me.
So once you left, your relationship there was no asking you back. There was no
ma'am. There's not enough money on the planet for me to come back. I'm not going to I trusted them. I trusted them, and they betrayed that. and everybody in the process betrayed it. So you don't come back from that.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And just from a point of view of watching and seeing, and I was offered the Housewives at one point, and my
Were you really?
to represent some of the other ladies. She said, "No, I will not let you go on because you are sweet, you're kind." She said, "What they force you to do, the surprises she said, you're not the right person to do this. You're too fragile."
So CG was almost a Bravo child.
I think I'm too fragile too. I don't think I would have been able to do that either.
Well, and I don't anything.
Well, so I know that when it comes to being on camera, they want you to just all of the ugly things that have haunted me about humanity, they want you to do to make that. So it's they're
going to get a sexy story with or without your approval.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So I was warned about it, and I was, and like, doesn't matter that they would pay well or not. It's not me.
I'm glad you didn't do that. I don't watch TV anymore. This has ruined my television. I haven't sat down and watched a nighttime primetime drama in a long time. I will watch Outlander. I'll make time for that one. And I'm watching Big Brother because Sari supports me, and I support everybody. Gosh. Everybody who supports me, I will support you.
Survivor. Actually, I think I like Big Brother.
Do you watch Big Brother
more than Survivor? I've seen almost every season of Big
Brother. I think that's
the
show I should have been on. Everybody's telling me you're not the Survivor guy. You're the Big Brother person. I should have done that.
I love it.
But that's gone.
So just a couple things to wrap up, because you've been so lovely to spend so much time with us. Do you still talk to anybody that you played with, and you still have some lasting friendships with some people?
Yes, absolutely. Several of us. And the way that I have my relationships with these people is there are so many that I could just call today that I haven't talked to in years. And it'd be, there are a handful that I would never touch again or go anywhere near. But yeah, that's brought me some really wonderful people.
And were they supportive and helpful? And were they a good ear for you?
That's why they're still here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because others weren't. And that's when you go through something like that, it shows you who deserves to be in your space. You learn. That's one of the first things I learned is you don't deserve me, and you are part of my, the bad things that I do because I hang out with you. Go away. And it changes your whole perspective.
Yeah.
And it's actually a very lonely place to be, because when you work through therapy and go through stuff like that, and you see the world a specific way that's different than you did before, the people in your world don't fit anymore. And you feel that, and they feel that, and you have to find new people. And I've drifted apart from some, and I have some new folks in my world, and I've never been happier.
That's the gift.
It took a minute to get here.
Yeah, is a really, leaning into the pain, knowing that you're going to come out stronger from something. I mean, it does. I mean, in that respect, like, what do you think is the biggest lesson that Survivor has taught you? That you can do hard things. That you're. Like, what is the first thing that pops into your head?
I cannot believe I don't have something prepared for that. You would have thought somebody had asked me that before.
I think you said a lot of the less. I mean,
so much. I mean, there's many. I don't know that I could choose one specific thing.
I mean, I can only imagine just even putting ourselves into stressful situations, whether it's just camping or going surfing or running a marathon or doing things that challenge us.
Do it. We always
do them so that we come out of it with, man, I can conquer my life. I can do hard things.
Absolutely.
This question is my favorite because I think of it as, advice that I get in a way. If you could tell your younger self anything from the point you are at in your life right now, what would you tell him?
To learn to forgive yourself is probably a big one, because you do a lot of things in your life and you feel certain ways about those things, and they shape how you feel about other things and bring people. When you realize that something's not right, you can really beat yourself up in a way that just damages your esteem and changes your direction for a negative thing. So one of the first things, if somebody's in an ugly place or they're just not sure what to do and they're mad at themselves because they did something, You have to start by first forgiving yourself. Nothing else will work until you do that. And to have courage, I would tell my young self that there's so much that nothing is as big as you think it is. And there's so many people out there who love you even when you think they don't. And you can get through anything, just persistence and forgiveness and acceptance and so many things.
I love that.
Call me anytime you need a pep talk, because I can shoot stuff out of my butt in 2 seconds.
I needed to hear something like that right now. So,
oh yeah, you tell me more, I can give you more.
It's a wild and wonderful world, and it's like, I mean, there's a reason it's the comedy and tragedy masks like that describe,
isn't it?
Everything.
It's true.
It really
and
is.
I love that I interviewed you on a carpet one year, and here we are. I wish I could
in the
remember.
Day where I was like, oh my gosh,
I remember thinking you were gorgeous. To me, you were the most beautiful of the cast, because you know, when you're interviewing people and they come up and they're talking to you, I'm listening to you, but I'm also marveling over your eyeshadow and the way your lipstick matches your dresses. And I have memories of looking at the way women did their eyeshadow. Halle Berry, Melania Trump. I interviewed the Trumps once, and
oh wow,
I wasn't even looking at him, because she had something really fancy going on, and
especially in those red carpet lights. They're pretty.
Yeah. You're under the light. I'm not. So I get it. Just, and you've watched TV shows for so many years, and up comes this person you've watched, and they're like real, and you want to touch them and be all fangirly, but you can't because you're, E person. And it just was a fascinating time, and I'm happy that I had the chance to meet you then and today too. And CG, you're just gorgeous. You've got a great light and energy coming off of you, and I'm so grateful y'all had me here.
Thank you so much. I do love how you ended with one of the most important things that I've been working on personally is allowing myself to make mistakes and instantly moving on. Move on. That I'll take notes on that and move on. Yeah. But I everyone has a right to fulfill their destiny, and everyone has a right to trip, fall, and recover. It's all how we recover.
Yeah. And we have to let people do that.
I know. And our purpose in life is to be useful and to give back to others. So thank you so much. And
thank you. I hope you'll have me back when I get my book done.
Sure.
Oh my gosh. I'm the biggest reader. So the second you said you have a book, I'm like, okay, the second it's on pre-order, signing up, gonna read it.
It's going to be so good. If I can just say,
excited.
I'm so proud of it. I'm nowhere near finished. It's going to take a lot more time, but it's going to be something that I needed, and it's going to be something different than what people would expect it to be.
Wow. Very excited to read it.
I'll send you a copy.
Thank you for sharing your story. I think it's this is one of the most groundbreaking television series of all Hollywood history, and it, like I said, this human experiment is it's intense and brave, and it's a euphemism for life and our journeys. So I think you've done it well.
Thank you,
ma'am. Because it's everything that encompasses what being a human being is about. So,
well, I might send you an email sometime asking for some tips on a podcast, because I have no idea what I'm doing, but people have told me I should do one for years, and I'm
sure.
So I'm following you both now on TikTok.
Thank you.
I've been slacking on that one.
So I'll pop you some questions sometimes.
You know what?
Spawn down.
My trick was that I used to think that it was so like I needed to control it, needed to be planned out. And one of the things that I just started doing is when I research who I'm speaking to is I just focus on things that interest me. And things that I find interesting, I ask my guest, and it's kind of developed into these. There's some preparation that goes into it, but then I let go of it and let it happen organically, as you were saying.
It's beautiful. I would love it if one day you would send me that list of those words that describe me. If you have those written down somewhere.
I do.
I would love that.
I can give you a copy of this this document that we focused on. In fact, I meant to send it to you and I didn't quite get it.
Yeah,
Okay.
That touched me. I think I could use that on a bad day.
Thank you. Well, Jeff Varner, thank you so much for sharing your story, and all the best to you. And I hope to see you again on the red carpet.
Thank you. You won't see
not
me.
my goal anymore. No.
I'll applaud you from my living room.
Yeah, right.
Nice dress, great hair. Awesome.
CG, we'll see you on the red carpet.
Yeah, we'll see you. And the cool thing is, if you become a famous actress, here I am on tape asking you if you're going to be a star. I got there first.
Right. Thank
I
you
will
so
use
much
this moment.
for coming
Y'all let me
on.
know when this airs.
I will.
Yes, absolutely.
Sure. Absolutely.
Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Much love to your puppy dog.
Yep, he's starving. It's time. He's standing right there. Thanks,
Okay.
guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you guys so much for listening. And many thanks to Jeff for coming on the podcast. Please follow, rate, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you want to watch it, check us out on YouTube. For additional content and live Zooms with us, you can join our Patreon. And we would love for you to follow us on social media. My Instagram and TikTok is CGMIR, and my mom's is the Melinda Clark. And you can follow at Bye Bitches Podcast on Instagram. And with that being said, bye bitches.